Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is January. I don't know why I want to say November. It's January 12th. It's Friday. It's Aloha Friday. And you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we've got Jyunmi, Andy, Beth. Just made it in under the gun as we were doing the intro. That's
The
okay.
role of Carl today will be played by Beth.
And I'm Brian, and that's okay, Beth. I literally came in like 2 seconds ago. I was working on another project. You know, you're just like intently focusing on another screen, and thank God it's on my calendar because it did the whole Google Calendar did the whole do, and I was like, what's that for? I was like, oh, the show starts in 3 minutes. Okay, fantastic. let me jump in and get on that. So today, guys, we are talking about Apple. So what are we talking about with Apple? Well, people like Justin Feinberg, if you follow him, he does some really great TikToks. I highly recommend him, as well as several other people I've seen in the last couple of months have either been talking about the sort of absence, if you will, of Apple being in the spotlight for AI. You know, I mean, last year was the year of ChatGPT and OpenAI and all these things, and kind of where was Apple? And then either that they're talking about that, or they're saying, hey, we think 2024, maybe early 2025 is going to be the year of Apple as it applies to AI. So that's what this show is all about. Like, what is Apple doing right now? What do we know? What are we guessing about? And where do we think they're gonna step in? Because we know they're gonna step into AI and make a major impact, but where? So that's what it is today. Who wants to jump the conversation up? I know maybe Jyunmi, you were just talking right before we went live about some stuff with their language model. So maybe that's a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's two language models that I'm aware of that Apple's been working with, right? First was the AJAX, which is a framework to sort of create their own Apple GPT, sort of like ChatGPT and things like that. And that's kind of where the rumors are right now, that Apple's going to have this wave of, AI tools and that for the consumers that's supposed to come out at their Worldwide Developer Conference that's coming up. And then the other one that I didn't really know much about, but kind of came in under the radar, was Apple, in conjunction with Columbia University, released a paper about an LLM, or a multimodal LLM that they worked on, which was specifically about spatial recognition, which would be really relevant to AR and VR aspects. And we know that they announced a release date for the Vision Pro being February. And so that's another element or another step that they're going to. But those are the two main models that I'm aware of that Apple's really working on right now.
And this might be a great place to pause really quick and talk about that Apple Vision Pro. It was announced last year. It is a headset wearable device. It does not need to be in conjunction with it's a standalone, meaning it doesn't need your phone to run. It's made out of like metal and glass. And from the reviews I've seen, it can be a little bit on the heavier side. It's not plastic. But as it is an independent, essentially, computer, it has a 2-hour battery pack on it, but can also be tethered to give you, unlimited battery pack. It's being priced at, I think, $3,500, which Apple themselves, when it came out, said, hey, we're not pretending that this is for mass consumption, that everybody, this is at a price point that everybody's done. You have to have the Tesla Model X or the Model S, right? It was the S that came out first, or the Roadster, before you can have the Model 3. And so this was Apple kind of saying, hey, this is not everybody's going to buy this. We know that's not the price point, but we really think this is the future of spatial, which you were just talking about, Jyunmi. Awareness analysis, spatial computing is what they call it. They really don't necessarily say AI as much. Interestingly, in their last big presentation announcement when they did the 15, They used AI a lot, but Apple's different, right? Apple is going to put something out there like a VR headset or an AR headset, and then tell you it's the only one of its kind, and they're breaking the mold, and then they give it a new name, and they're like, that's because it's the first of its kind. And then people like Meta raise their hand and go, wait a minute. We've had things similar to this, but Apple's Apple, right? They have a unique way of releasing what they do. Anyway, from everything I can tell, Marcus Brown, the big reviewer on YouTube, Marcus.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Yeah.
he has like 5 channels.
It's Friday, everybody.
He does great reviews and stuff. And he used the AI Pro, and he's like, look, I can't show it to you on TV, but I just used it for 30 minutes. And I'll summarize his review of saying the AI, the Vision Pro he said, it's pretty amazing. It does a lot of things that nothing else does. There are no controllers. Everything is done by pinches of the fingers. And what he said above all that he was impressed with was its eye tracking ability. He said that is like scary good next level type, and that it has a very good idea of exactly what you're looking at. And that allows you to do some really cool things with just your hands. So anyway, just want to bring that up. It's not that that's necessarily AI in the terms of 2024, but it is a huge new product release. And you don't get a whole lot of V1s from Apple, right? I don't know how many iPads, iWatches, iPhones, and so on we've had at this point. But this is a V1 of the Vision Pro, so it's really interesting.
Well, we know that Apple is going to. We know that Apple is doing a bunch of things behind the scenes. I mean, one of the things that they're doing is using their very large treasure chest to make sure that they are paying for a bunch of content to be able to train their large language model on, and that. So like there are those kinds of indications as well that this stuff is starting to roll out. My sense is that they're like Siri is already AI, right? There are a bunch of things that that we use every day that are Apple AI's stuff. It's just not called that. But my sense is that in the beginning they'll just be a little like Siri will get smarter, right? Amazon announced that Alexa got smarter. It was like a big thing. I don't think Apple is going to do that with that sort of incremental thing. That's my.
So here's a measure of Apple's investment is that they are reputed to be spending $4 billion just on AI processors in 2024.
Wow.
So, but that may be, similar to what it costs to run Siri. I'm not sure that.
I mean, they're a $3 trillion company, right? So $4 billion is not a huge. It's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money to Apple. Per se.
It's a lot of chips, that's for sure. So they're planning for something that's going to rely on AI processors. And I think it's as simple as, they've been in the vanguard of natural language processing with the advent of Siri. It was developed by a small external company. I happen to know one of the founders of that, Tom Gruber, and it then became the first way that people, interacted naturally with, voice. And so that's really a great thing. However, by being so early in the game that way, the architecture of Siri is reportedly not that amenable. And so they're trying to bolt two things together. One is large language models and Siri, and how do you stack that all together? It could be that the LLMs with their voice interfaces at this point that have been created a couple decades after Siri really kind of came along, all of those new tools, maybe it would make more sense to swap out all of that with a whole new generation of Apple-oriented AI tools. But they've got a big Siri team inside the company. And so there are also reportedly clashes between the AI elements of AI in the organization and the Siri team. I think those will end up being resolved, and you'll see Siri get a lot smarter, as you say, Beth.
I want to bring up this comment real quick on here from Jen. It both enrages and terrifies me that Apple has been so silent, if I'm honest, with a laughing emoji. I agree with you, Jen. And then we had another user say, Apple reducing impact to ecosystem by using glass and metal versus plastic. For the headset. I hadn't thought about it that way, but sure, if we're reducing plastic and stuff like that, it's a high end device. I mean, that even when you look at it, and then Marcus talking about it again, it looks like you're putting a Mac Pro type design, aesthetic metal on your head. But that's because it has 7 cameras facing forward and 7 cameras facing back just at your eyeballs, and it traces your eyes and the whole thing, and it's very, very, very complex. And I'm sure that's the reason why it's at the price point. It's also because it's Apple and they have to. So Apple's not going to come out with a bargain basement V1 product. That's not what they do. That's not who they are. So they're going to be at the upper echelon, because whether it costs that or not, that's what people expect. I do want to get back to Siri though, because I think that's a really interesting place. So I don't know about you guys, but I feel like just in my house, I don't use Siri as much, but I use the Echo. I won't say her name. She'll go off in the room. But,
this show we'll all be whispering.
I'll just call it the Echo, and we know what I'm talking about, right? But it's funny, in 2023, they haven't changed, but my perception has that the Echo, Siri, Hey Google, whatever, they've all gotten dumber. But they haven't. It's that I'm so damn used to getting such high quality answers from ChatGPT, from using it on my phone and everything else, that my level of necessity has risen. My level of
expectation.
Thank you. Has risen. I don't know. Do you guys feel the same way? Like when my wife and I were just using the Echo the other day, and it seemed like a very easy answer. We reworded it twice, and my wife's like, I don't even know why I try. And I mean, that's we both had that thing. We laughed it off, but it was kind of annoying. And I turned to her and I said, I mean, I cannot wait till they just update this and it has an LLM behind it, because this is annoying. I'd even take a 5-second latency delay just to get the right answer from it and have something that's actually useful to us. So I don't know. Do you guys feel the same way? Do you use a lot of those tools still today? And I don't know, where do we think this is going as far as Siri is concerned?
Well, I think Andy's point that it was developed by another thing, and that by another team, right? So it's not quite as integrated, makes a little bit more sense to me, because I have, not all the time, but the car experience where my iPhone has connected via Bluetooth. I'm driving, right? I know I am driving.
Right.
So when I ask you a question, I do not want you to tell me that you found a website, right?
Right.
That is not helpful for me.
Yeah. Good point.
And just that kind of there's so many ways in which Apple makes things that are useful, right? Like it understands the context of where you are, and then can do something with that. And I have been very confused that Siri has not seemed to jump on that bandwagon.
Contrast the demo experience of the R1 with Siri.
Right?
They're worlds apart. The Rabbit R1, mine's coming in April, is demonstrably, although who knows what this looks like in scale, but it's demonstrably much more natural and fluid in its interaction with you than Siri is with me. So to your question, have the rest of us had problems with Siri? Well, Siri doesn't get me. I don't know why.
Not like Lana.
I know Lana may have changed your perspective on.
I have used Siri. I probably use Siri a couple times a week just to ask it to call somebody, but that's about the limit of what I use Siri for. And now that on my phone I have voice interaction with ChatGPT, anything more sophisticated than call my friend Brian, is
Yeah.
going through ChatGPT. I just click the button on the app, boom, hit the headphone icon, and now I'm talking to a much more fluent,
Right.
interaction.
It's interesting. Go ahead, Jimmy. I had
I
another
was just
thought
going to
on
say,
that.
I really don't use any of the assistants through my day to day, and I'm on Android. I know everyone else is on an iPhone, but I'm on Android. Uh, the integration and experience is not the same on an iPhone, and so I just never got into using it on my mobile device. I immediately made the jump once ChatGPT, and like Andy said, once the voice features on there, if I'm gonna use my phone for any of that kind of research or looking up stuff or asking questions or whatever, I'm gonna use that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. No.
I think that's a huge point, right? Because it's so funny how allegiance can jump, right? If you asked me today and you said, "Do you have any allegiance to OpenAI?" I'd say no. They simply solve my problems today. But am I 100% willing to jump to an Apple, Siri, whatever tomorrow if it in turn solves my pain points? And I'm going to say in my case, probably my in-house pain points. And what I mean by that is I have a family of 3. It's my wife, myself, and my daughter, who's a teenager. And so there are a lot of connected Apples. I have 3
Right.
Apple TVs in the house. I don't have any Macs. I have PCs, but I have 3 Apple TVs. There are 3 Apple phones. There's an iPad in the mix somewhere for my daughter. Maybe a pair of AirPods in there. There's Apple stuff in the house. I used things like Track My Phone to help me understand where my daughter is and things like that, right? So, but even if not that, just messaging. If I can start a conversation with Siri, that's much more like a chat GPT, and I'm in the house and my daughter's asking me a question. I go to Siri immediately on my phone by doing the wake word or whatever. And I don't really use it either right now, but my wife has started using more. She just got an Apple Watch and I hear her using Siri way more because it makes sense for her on the Apple Watch. So interesting. That's happened since Christmas. So even the case, hey Siri, what's the blah, 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 the answer to this? Brian, whatever it is, the answer is this. Cool. Can you send that over to my Apple TV so I can watch the YouTube video you just suggested on it? Oh, great. Great. Can you do a synopsis and summary of that, but make it for a 13-year-old who's trying to understand this concept and send it to her in a concise iMessage? Yeah, no problem. Who do you want me to send that to? Send it over to Sophie. Okay, great. Send to Sophie, or like delay that till after school and send it to her. I know she was asking about this earlier. Holy moly, does that change my in-house family dynamic of how I would use it? I don't today because, like you said, Andy, like other than maybe the random weather or something like that, or now my phone likes to wake up because my wife is talking to her watch. Even though the watch is here and my phone is clear across the room, it wakes my phone up. How is that possible? I don't know, but we laugh about it. It's annoying. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Is like, I feel like it would just like if Apple released it tomorrow and said, hey, with iOS 18 and the Apple or the iPhone, what are we up to? 16 this year in September, or when they do their WWDC thing, their developer conference that's coming up in June. Hey, by the way, starting tomorrow, Siri is this much more powerful. I'd be like, cool. And I would immediately start using Siri. Like, I don't know. Do you feel like you have an allegiance to anything other than Lana and Digi? We know where that is, Andy. And I don't want her to overhear this or feel slighted in any way or cheated on. But is there any allegiance?
I'm going to ask Lana if she's been talking to you. No.
It's fair. It's a fair point. Or do you guys feel like, do you have any current allegiance to any of the AI products at this point? Are there any that you wouldn't happily leave tomorrow if it solved your pain points more efficiently?
I don't think so. I will preface that I've always been platform agnostic, right? There have been products and platforms that I've definitely gravitated to and have used for a long time, but I kind of want to use whatever the greatest latest and greatest thing is. But I think in a more general sense, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Brian. It really is the user experience. Can it solve my problems? Right. Mm-hmm. If it solves all my problems and works with, especially if it works with the hardware I already have, like if I don't have to invest in any more infrastructure for X, Y, or Z, then sure, let's move on to what the next thing is. But I think in Apple's case, they're all about keeping their users in their ecosystem.
Sure.
Right.
And we talked about this offline in the past. Apple's approach is, and you even mentioned, is like, oh yeah, we have the latest and greatest hardware. It's like, oh, but X, Y, or Z did this before.
Sure.
But they want to do it the best, right? Yeah. They want just make it work, right? Or it just works. And so I think that's probably a good approach, especially with the wild ride that we've been on with AI and AI development over this last year, or last 12 months, I should say. But so I think that's the way they're going to approach it. It is, we want to make sure that it works all the time, or at least nearly all the time, before that goes out. And I think that will lend to all the adoptions. Remember, they got 2 billion devices out there. So let's,
right.
They want to take advantage of it. It's going to happen, right?
I don't see Siri competing with what ChatGPT gives me, because ChatGPT can become anyone I program them to be, right? So like I can program a particular kind of expertise, I can program a particular kind of relationship, I can and I can do multiples of those. And I'm not sure that that's in Apple's wheelhouse or interest. I think Siri is likely to retain Siri's personality, or maybe get a little bit more, but not like, hey, today I'd like you to be Brene Brown. Right? Like, I don't know that that's going to happen, because that just hasn't been the way that experience, experience has, like,
I think I'm going to push back on that. I think it's completely malleable. That is, Siri in the phone is waiting to get its larger brain tacked onto it. And it will be very responsive. It can have, a full panoply of voices and characters. You can actually, I think you'll be able to create characters, like you can create a custom GPT that will serve you, and you can call that one up through Siri. So, hey, Siri, connect me to Joe the plumber.
Okay.
Whatever.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I was not thinking that was going to happen.
I would love it if I could call up, if I pre-program Siri to be a math tutor, but specifically for advanced algebra in 7th grade in Florida, where my daughter, you know what I mean? Like she was asking us questions the other day, and what were my wife and I doing over the shoulder of my daughter when she asked us questions, and it had to do with, it was in parentheses, and then it was a square root, but square root was a fraction. And my wife and I are like, oh, listen. She's like, well, how are you supposed to do this without a calculator? My wife and I were like, listen, fair point. I don't know if you can. I don't even know if you can do this long-handed. I'm sure there's a way. My first question was, is your teacher asking you to do this long-handed? No. Okay, let's let that go. And my wife is literally on ChatGPT on the other side of my daughter. She goes, you know what you need to do? It's the quotient of this one and the exponent of that one, right? She told her what it was. And my daughter Sophia is like, oh, she's like, my teacher never taught us. How am I supposed to do this homework? My teacher never does. My wife was like, I don't know, but that's the way to do it. Go check because she had the answer. And my wife was like, then goes to Sophia and goes, do you need better explanation of why that works? And Sophia's like, no, I got it. But my wife was ready to go and read right off of ChatGPT and be like, listen, man, this is what it says, So like, if there's a Siri that was a hard process, that was actually really easy for a parent to like quickly help our daughter. Now, were we just blindly taking pictures and giving her the answer? No, we were like, I don't know. You're right. This is a math problem. How do you do this? Because you got two parents who haven't seen or touched algebra in many, many years. I haven't touched it since I was a firefighter. So, I think it's great in that sense.
I want to know what firefighters do with algebra.
Oh, really? Coefficients.
This is a firefighter story right here.
Okay, you can throw up the firefighter band.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. 210, 266, 328, 508, 592, or 813, 1062. I probably have some of those numbers wrong. It's been a while. I haven't been a firefighter in the domestic case since 2008, so it's been a few years. If I thought about it, I could get those numbers right. What are those numbers? Those are smooth bore, solid nozzle coefficients that you needed to know, because I was an engine driver. When you're running the pump panel with two hands, you look like you're trying to paint with two arms. And by the way, everything is like stupid proof. It's firefighter proof. Everything is color coded, right? So this nozzle goes with that hose over there that's now in the building. But think about this. Like, people don't think about this until I didn't know until I was a firefighter. You're standing at a pump panel who's getting water from a hydrant. There's a pressure coming in. You also might be boosted from another relay, depending on whether that hydrant was weak or not. Now you have several hoses going off the thing that are outputs, right? But one of them is a 2.5. One of them is an 1 3/4 hose. Where are those hoses going? Well, one's a 200 lay and it's going downhill and it's entering the house. What kind of nozzle does it have on it? Is it an adjustable nozzle? Is it a smooth bore nozzle that has unscrewed tips on the top? Are you at the top of a 90-foot? I used to be up in the bucket, right? 90 feet in the air over the top of a fire. Well, you got smooth bore nozzles. The person on the ground needs to know how to gate back, is what it was called. Firefighters have gate back and adjust pressures, knowing the coefficients in order to know the appropriate gate back amount to make sure that you basically didn't take the guy at the other end or the girl at the other end of the hose and flip them on their head. Because you could absolutely send so much pressure that it would, you've seen those videos, right? Where it picks somebody off their feet. And so we had firefighter stands, so we had doubled up for that kind of stuff. But a 2-inch hose could send you flying and kill people. I mean, it could be seriously dangerous. So that's where algebra comes into firefighting, is in engineering, specifically being an engineer, being an engine driver or a ladder driver or whatever, a device driver.
But you don't have to solve quadratic equations at the pump, right?
No,
yeah. So that's a segue into how I think Apple could do something with the emerging technologies, which will allow an augmented reality kind of headset. Expensive, but certainly doable in the context of firefighting.
Absolutely doable.
Where the engineer at that panel is being assisted by a very smart AI that knows how to articulate this thing. You can't swap out all the equipment, all the people who are making these pumpers and engines. They're not going to suddenly incorporate AI into their system, but Apple could give you all the tools that engineer is being supported and is being talked to by Siri in the process. Oh, wait, you need to make an adjustment to that one first because I got an air tag over here and it's 150 feet away.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Yeah, you're 1,000% right. And something like that, heads up displays, we know these thermal imagings and stuff have already started to hit because they come from the military and down. But 1,000%, I agree with you. Knowing the pressure coming out of the tip of the hose or wherever it is totally doable today, right? Do we need to swap out all the stuff? But just having a heads up display, because by the way, you're not doing that job in a quiet environment. You're like, now, what do I need to do? It is all hell is usually breaking loose. You've got people screaming through the radio, giving you new commands. People are walking up to you. People are coming back and telling you there's too much or not enough pressure. Give me water or whatever it is. Because by the way, giving people water before they get up the 3 flights of stairs doesn't go well. You don't want to be the guy in the engine that gave water before they were all the way at the top, because you cannot move a fully hose full of water around the stairwell going to the top.
Oh, no.
That puppy needs to be where it needs to be. Anyway, I won't get on the scroll topic on that. I want to, before we end, because I have not had a chance to talk about this, because I think this is really important. Apple, and Justin Feinberg is the one that made me aware of this. Apple is working on a LLM in a flash, which frankly just sounds cool. But what they're talking about is there is an inherent problem with taking, we know this from Mistral and stuff like that, of taking a big LLM with lots of weights and sticking it on a phone because of the limitations of the phone. Apple is actively working around this, and I really think this is what we're going to see as the breakthrough this year, where basically through a series of what they call windowing, what they call your block size, essentially what they're doing is they're making it so that the LLM is able to reside on the flash side. Because just as a quick rundown on this, you have RAM, you have flash memory. RAM, you have 6 gigabytes on my new iPhone 15. There's 6 gigabytes of RAM on it. It's super, super fast. It can do 10 gigabytes a second. Flash can hold 100 gigabytes of information, or 128 on my phone, but it can only move it at 1 gigabyte a second. There's huge latency. So what Apple has worked on is the ability to hold these LLMs in flash, which means they're there whether they have power or not. And in a very, very efficient, highly technical windowing and all these things, only move what needs to be moved over to RAM at the time that it's needed, which is really going to be the breakthrough for Apple and everybody else, for us to have true LLMs that sit without power on our phone and are called on whenever they need. And if you want to look up more on that, just look up Apple LLM in a flash. And you will find the research documentation. I found a YouTube video that actually breaks it down and does kind of one of those cool drawings over the top of it. Super, super nerdy, but cool stuff. And I think that could be the breakthrough that's necessary for Siri, for Windows, or for Apple messaging, iMessaging, for FaceTimes and things like that. All these things that have just exponential OpenAI type power. This is probably the year this is going to happen.
Right. Exactly. I agree completely. That essentially this is just getting local install of the LLM onto your hardware, right? So if they can achieve that, then all of the latest advancements we've seen in being able to compress LLMs smaller and smaller and smaller, so they'll take a smaller and smaller footprint, and with that technology, grabbing the chunks that they need to access when they need to access is going to shorten the amount of active memory that needs to be used, because right now it's all loaded into memory to process. So
that would be a breakthrough announcement that if it came in 2024 would be awesome, which is we're updating iOS, and as a result of this next update, you'll have a local AI that's your personal AI. It's designed and built to learn about you without sharing that information with anyone, privacy protected, but very powerful thing that just basically disintermediates all the cloud-based AIs.
Right.
Suddenly, Apple, because of the zillions of iPhones that are out there, does this, and you've got to have one. You've got to have an iPhone to do it.
And the other thing,
you're going to have a recent iPhone. Because the old iPhones 4 years or older probably will not have the compute power or capacity to push to do it, right? So that it'll be another bit. If that does happen, it's yet another reason for Apple to say, you want the AI assistant, you're going to have an iPhone, I guess it would be like 12 or newer, or 14 or newer.
Probably beyond
for this
that. It's probably 15 or newer, I would think.
Yeah, maybe.
The other thing that Apple has that we haven't talked about is the infrastructure of, like, basically you can go in person and have a class, talk to somebody. Like, imagine I totally would have been driving down to Bethesda to have a chat with the OpenAI Genius Bar, right? Like, totally. And so I think that it's not flashy, it's not going to be announced, but I do feel like because they not only have the infrastructure of devices, but also the infrastructure of support and free classes and all of that kind of stuff that is local, right? That it's just
excellent point. Their installed base of not only phones, but stores is global.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when have you ever seen an empty iPhone Apple store?
No.
Yeah, they're always full. I'm like, what are all these people doing? I think they just like hang around. And by the way, you're going to be able to get demos. I just read about that when I was looking at the Vision Pro. You're going to be able to do free demos there without any pre-order or anything like that. Can you imagine those lines? And it's first come, first serve to sign up for those demos. So can you imagine what that's going to be like? All right, we got to wrap this up for today. But hopefully that for anybody that's listening to this, if you haven't really been following what Apple does, you got a better idea. There's a good chance you have an iPhone or an Apple product in your house. Maybe you use Macs or whatever. And there's a very big chance, as you've heard us talk about, that you could end this year with a significantly more powerful Apple device that you already own. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to think about that. And I'm here for it, like all of us. So we will continue to produce. The developer conference is in June. I think that's our first chance to really get some announcements. So we will revisit this at least by June, if not beforehand. And we'll keep up with any news that comes out on our Wednesday show. So that'll do it for today. We'll be back all next week. Come hang out with us. And that's it. We got more interviews on the way too. Go check out the interview if you haven't with Nicole Leffer. It's live. She is a marketing genius. She is working with marketing teams on AI. It's a great interview. So go check that out if you haven't. It's up on all our platforms and stuff like that. All right, guys, that's it. Good seeing you guys, and we'll see you on Monday.
Aloha.